Hi, welcome back to my channel and a new video. Just going to be doing some short reviews today for some more of the recent horror releases we got throughout sort of September and October, especially ones that came to streaming. I'm finding it more and more difficult to know what the official release date for a movie is, because you get films where they get this one-off release at a festival somewhere and that's considered the release date, and then you get some countries it comes theatrically out and then to streaming, so it's difficult to know the exact dates here, but these are some of the more recent releases we got in horror that I managed to check out. So I just wanted to kind of do more of like an off-the-cuff video where I kind of give you my recommendations and tell you a bit about what I thought of these movies. So first up is Cobweb. This is one that I don't think could have been marketed particularly well, because I really didn't hear anything about this when this came out recently. It was only going and seeing a YouTube review of this recently and someone giving it quite a lot of praise that I thought I needed to track it down and give it a watch, but really didn't hear much about this when it came out. And this one is a Halloween story. It's basically about a young child who starts to hear all of these creaking noises through his wall at night, hearing voices, stuff like this. And at the same time, he lives with his parents and they exhibit a lot of very strange behaviour. They're very creepy people, and the story is all about whether this kid is crazy and is just hearing things, or whether there's some kind of bigger conspiracy and the parents are trying to cover something up. And basically, as the story goes along, you're given all of these little details about small things that have happened which kind of raise suspicions about these people, where a young girl in their neighbourhood went missing, and there's certain things they hide and there's certain ways that they treat this child that all are a little bit strange. And this also raises the suspicions of the kid's teacher, so she starts to get involved in this story as well. And the thing I really liked about this one is it was very unpredictable. The story does not go in the way you are expecting, and it's pretty shocking in parts. I thought it had some genuinely really scary moments, like two scenes in particular that I don't want to spoil, but they have stuck with me. One particular one that's a nightmare that plays out really creepy, and another couple of moments later that really took me by surprise. And I think it's because they're not doing any of the lame, cheap sort of jump scare thing here. They use very, very creative ideas to kind of really surprise you with very cool effects and stuff. And yeah, it's a really creepy little Halloween story. I liked the vibe of it as well. It's got that very autumn feel with the pumpkins, and it would have been a perfect movie to watch last week. I should have really done a full review for it then when I saw it, but it's a very nice little Halloween film, and it's definitely one I'll revisit. I think maybe in the final act, again, I won't go into any spoilers because I am recommending you see this one, but it maybe gets a little bit over the top. I think perhaps they were a little bit ambitious with a few things where it feels like it's all getting a little bit crazy, maybe too much going on. And it's one as well where at the end, if you really start thinking about it and asking questions, you'll realise there was definitely some things in the plot that could have been tightened up a bit more, I thought. It kind of raises questions that it doesn't answer very well, I don't think. But other than that, this is still a recommend though. It's a pretty damn good horror film, one of the better ones this year as well. And yeah, it's genuinely just quite surprising, quite unique, and it's definitely one worth watching. So that one I'd give a 3 out of 5, but it's a high 3. I almost want to give it a 3.5. But it wasn't special enough where I wanted to go up to that next rating, but it's definitely a recommend that you give this one a watch. So next up here we have The Passenger, and this is one about a guy who's very reclusive, this young guy, and he works in this burger shop, this burger cafe on a highway in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of a very dead-end job, it's quiet there, and because he's this kind of timid, anxious guy, you can see at the start that he's bullied by these other people that work there. And anyway, out of nowhere, one of his colleagues just completely snaps and kills every single person in the restaurant out of nowhere, and basically kidnaps this one kid who he leaves alive. And it's basically so it feels like it's kind of setting up as a horror film, but it really turns into more of a drama, where he's kidnapped this guy, he takes him in his car, and he's basically using him as an experiment for him trying to overcome his anxieties and basically stand up to people in his life. It sounds like a very weird premise, but I thought it looked really intriguing, so I decided to give this one a go. And it's quite, again, it's another one that's just quite surprising, the direction it goes. So it really, as I said, it starts off like a horror movie, but turns into this sort of psychological thriller drama type thing. And I thought this one was really interesting. It's carried by the two main actors, Kyle Gallner, and I can't remember the name of the other guy, but they were absolutely amazing. Kyle Gallner in particular, he's appeared in more movies again recently, and he is a very underrated actor. He's amazing in this as well. Just sort of explosively violent, but very intriguing as well. He's very convincing. And I like stories as well that kind of tackle themes of overcoming, anxieties, things that are slowing you down in life, being controlled by people. I kind of like films that are all about overcoming those things. So he's kind of dealing with these characters where it feels like he's a villain or an enemy in some way, but in some ways, in this day that they go through together, he's kind of making him a stronger person. So it's a very interesting character study. I won't, again, like with the other film, I won't go too much more than that because I don't want to spoil too much about this, but it was a pretty surprising one. I actually really liked this, and it has an ending as well that was very emotional. I was pretty surprised by how much it hit me, that the final sequence. So yeah, this one is actually a high recommend. I've seen a few people that didn't really like about this the fact that it leaves certain things unanswered, but to me that felt realistic. When you have a story where, especially in a situation like this, where everything is neatly tied up and answered for you, it wouldn't feel as gritty, wouldn't feel as real. So I like the way they did it here. They let you know just enough to hint and give you the story of what's going on, but without it feeling unnatural, I thought. So highly recommended this one. I'd give this one a 3.5 out of 5. So now we're at VHS 85, and for anybody that doesn't know, the VHS films are basically these series of horror shorts that are compiled together, usually directed by relatively well-known directors of the genre, and they're kind of given this one single through-line story that connect all of these shorts. And I decided to give this one a watch because I watched the first 2 years ago when they came out, and they weren't films that I loved, but there was a particular short on each of them that I thought was really interesting and I really did think was pretty unique, and I recommend it to people based just purely on those shorts. From the first one, of course, the one that everyone talks about, the David Bruckner one with the girl they bring home, and on the second film, it was the one with the cult in the school. I thought those two are really shocking short films, very, very cool, creepy, interesting stories, and it kind of did get my intrigue up about this franchise as a whole. But I think, I haven't actually seen them all, but as more of them came out, they did seem to get more and more declining positive reviews, so I kind of gave up with them. But this one came to Shudder recently, so I thought, why not? I'll give it a go, see if it's got anything new to offer. And didn't really like this one at all, to be honest. I find that once you've seen one of these VHS films, even though they're very weird, there ends up being a sort of predictability about them in the way they go. You start being able to really see all of the twists coming. So if VHS 85 is the first one that you ever saw, you'd probably find some of this pretty surprising, quite shocking. But once you've seen one of these movies, they do follow a very, very particular formula, I feel, anyway. The one thing they did different here was one of the shorts, which was actually the best one, I thought, which was the one where these group of people all go out on a boat together, and I don't want to spoil. I don't actually even want to spoil this short because this was the best one. They all go out on a boat together, and this particular horrific event happens, and then it cuts off suddenly. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, but was that it? Is it not going to conclude that story? And what they end up doing is there's an unrelated short later on that ends up connecting back into the story. So that was the one new thing they really did here. But I felt the problem with that was you ended up, by the time it came around and they actually answered some of these things, you were already frustrated because you felt like it was never going to be wrapped up. 'Cause you never know with these shorts, they just suddenly wrap up and you think, oh, was that it? So you're used to seeing that with these. So I kind of felt more frustrated that they weren't going to do anything with it. And then when they finally did complete it, I was just like, oh, okay, that was interesting, but again, just fairly forgettable. And a lot of the other ones I either thought were pretentious or just difficult to get through, to be honest. You know, there's the Scott Derrickson one. Obviously, Scott Derrickson is a very well-respected director now, and he does do a good job with the short, but I just found it difficult to watch, to be honest. You know, it's already very, very shaky with the camcorder style, so you're easily going to get a headache. They're very gruesome, very seedy, and everything like that. So unless it's really got a good story to tell, I find them a bit of a chore to get through. And unfortunately, even with Scott Derrickson's, I found that here. So I do just think maybe this is a franchise that just isn't really for me, to be honest. Again, throughout the whole series, there are a few shorts that I'd recommend that are good. But VHS 85 for me, I would say, is one you should skip. So I would give that one a 2 out of 5. And lastly, we have Totally Killer. And this was one that came straight to Amazon Prime last month. Sort of a horror comedy type film. Actually very similar to, what's it called? Happy Death Day, if you've ever seen that before. And it's kind of doing that. It's a story about this girl who gets transported back in time to try and stop a certain series of killings from happening. It's kind of like a Back to the Future idea. It's all a bit crazy. But if you go along with it, I think you'll have some fun with this one. I actually watched this twice over about 3 days because I watched it the first time when it was new and I got some enjoyment out of it. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed the music. I thought the main character, the lead actress, can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I thought she was very fun and engaging. And I liked the slasher elements as well. You know, it had lots of bloody violence. It was a film that just passed the time really nicely. It was entertaining, and that was it. Then I rewatched it a few days later, and I showed it to a group of my friends. Actually, we were having a bit of a hungover day, and they wanted something easy watch. And I thought, oh, I'll show them this movie, and they all hated it. So I don't know if other people get this, but I find often if you're watching a film with somebody and you know they're hating it, it can kind of take away some of your enjoyment from the film as well. So I found that a little bit with this. When I rewatched it, I maybe didn't find it as funny or as engaging as I did the first time. But so again, I'm sure there'll be some people that will enjoy this one. It's an easy watch. It's not doing anything too ambitious, I wouldn't say, but if you like that kind of 80s vibe, because obviously it takes her back to the era of the 80s, if you like that vibe, and if you gel with this main character and the comedy and stuff, I think you'll have a good time with this. And as well as I said, it's a bit like Happy Death Day, so if you enjoyed that, I think you'll probably have a fairly good time with this one. So I also gave this one a 3 out of 5 rating. So that's it for the new release horrors that I saw last month. I did also watch Exorcist Believer. I did go out to the cinema to see that, and I did do a full review for that film, so I'll leave a card at the end if you wanted to hear my in-depth thoughts on that. Spoiler for that one, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was very good, but I did have a few things to say about it, and I think some people will enjoy it. I mean, it's been made out as like it's one of the worst horror films we've had in years, and it's definitely not that, but it wasn't very good. So if you want to hear my review and my thoughts on that, I will leave a link for that at the end of this video. So please do leave your comments down below if you've seen any of the films that I've talked about today, and do let me know your thoughts on them. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.